Welcome to Burnt Out. The Burnt Out podcast shares the stories of firefighters, emergency personnel, and other first responders around the world to create a pathway to save lives. The stories you will hear are real and may be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. And now I'd like to introduce you to your hosts for Burnt Out, Skip O and Jeff the Old Guy.
Sean, thank you for that introduction. And I'd like to thank all our listeners coming on here. And we'd like to thank our sponsors. Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Who are our sponsors and where can they find them?
Well, they could simply go to www.burntoutpodcast.org or worldwidepeersupport.org and see our sponsors that provide the information we need to do this show.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. That's the old guy, just Jeff. He's all the way from Maryland coming on here to help co-host this show today. And anybody that needs help, reach out to one of us. Go on burnoutpodcast.org. Send us a message, and you'd like to hear from us, we'll get a hold of you. If you'd like to hear from our guest today, we'll pass a message to him so you can get a hold of him. But we'd like to introduce our guest today, and it's the instructor of the Anderson Police Department, and it's John Baysinger. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John.
I should have said Lieutenant John.
Yeah, that's okay. It's been John longer than it's been anything else.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience with us. Police officers are very close to me. I have two brothers that were on the police department for many years and friends. And when we were firefighters, I remember a lot of times I was so glad to see the police officers show up to those scenes. Now, there was a time in my life that I didn't like seeing police officers because it wasn't a good thing. But, today it's a little bit different. But we wanted to just kind of go into, John, just tell a little bit about yourself and just kind of what you do. And then we'll come up with some questions and go from there. Does that sound okay to you?
Sounds perfect. Thank you. Like I said, John Baysinger, I've been an Anderson policeman for almost 27 years. Before that, I'm an Anderson born and bred. I went to Madison-Heights High School. As soon as I graduated in 1988, I joined the Marine Corps and off I went. I got honorably discharged as a sergeant E5, came back, decided maybe being a police officer is what I wanted to do. So I applied and I was fortunate enough to get hired in 1997. I went to the academy and I was an honor graduate at the academy, came out. I've been really, really fortunate here. Been an instructor for almost 20 years. I teach physical tactics, defensive tactics, CPR, a lot of different things. I've progressed through the ranks and become a lieutenant about a year and a half ago. I've worked in every patrol shift as a patrolman and as a supervisor, and now I'm currently the training coordinator, which is kind of where my passion is, training people, trying to keep them safe, trying to help them obtain the goal of going home safely at the end of their watch.
John, I tell you what, you've done a lot, not just being a police officer, being a Marine. Kind of going back, what led you to want to serve in the Marine Corps? It's
kind of funny, Skip. I had full intentions of going to Ball State and be an architect student. And then as God would have it, I believe that kind of fell through financially. So I just felt drawn to do something different. So I looked towards the military, and the Marines were always the world's finest. So I thought that's what I needed to be a part of. So I ran out and enlisted. I actually went in on the buddy program with a buddy who didn't end up going. So I went by myself right before Christmas, and I don't regret it at all. It was one of the best decisions I'd ever made in my life.
When you went through there, was it what you expected? Like you hear the stories about the boot camps, the people in your face and all that stuff. Yeah. Was it what you expected?
I'll tell you, the movie Full Metal Jacket, the boot camp scenes are pretty much it. I mean, it really was. Here I was a small town guy, from Anderson, Indiana. I had really never been outside of Indiana much until then, and we're all the way in California in the middle of the night, and it was everything I thought it was going to be and a little bit more. It takes a while to kind of get used to what it's about. They're trying to. It's a game. They're trying to break you down and then build you up the way they want you to be, and it made the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy a lot easier.
I bet. How long did you say you served? 4 years? Is that what you said?
It was 8 years.
Wow. 8 years.
I did a 6x2 contract. So 6 were active and 2 were inactive. I was in, I'm an old guy, kind of, I mean, we're all old guys here, I think, but, it was in 1988. So we were Desert Shield, Desert Storm. That was some events that fortunately didn't last very long. So I didn't get to be a part of too terribly much. But again, I think that's God's plan too. We go where we're supposed to go, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. Being in the Marines for 6 years and, or for 8 years, did you notice anybody or somebody with an addiction or PTSD or any of that stuff?
It was, we noticed things like that, but we didn't really, it didn't have a title as much. And I don't think it was as openly spoken of. We dealt with a lot of the trauma that we had with going out and drinking and having a good time. But we never really knew why. It was just guys blowing off steam. And a lot of times it was just Marines being Marines. And not that makes an excuse for it, but it's kind of acceptable. And then when I got out and I got on the police department, I think I've noticed it more, obviously almost 27 years here, you see a lot more the way the trauma impacts us.
Sure. I tell you, one of my friends that's in the military, and he said, Skip, when we go serve and we go there, we come back, but you guys on the police and fire, you're on a daily mission each and every day. And did you notice that? Is there a difference?
Yeah. It's funny because I think we have to define critical incidents individually. What may be critical to you may not be to me, depending on what I've been through in my life and vice versa. And we deal with so many things on a daily basis that we don't ever have that time really to decompress. And, I was on the SWAT team for 24 years here. I was the commander for the last 7 years, and I've probably done 250, 300 call outs, and that adds a whole additional stress to it all and things that I never really thought about until I gave it up, and then I kind of reflect on it a lot now. It's like, we just continue to push stuff down and push stuff down and push stuff down, and we don't ever address it. And it leads to some poor choices. I'll be the first one to tell you, I've made some poor choices in my life. Choices that I regret and that I wish I would have made differently. And I'm not going to blame the trauma or the stress alone, but I think that has a lot to do with it and how we deal with it. And we're type A personality people, and we don't want to admit anything, in the police action shooting that I was in, about 5 years ago, I remember coming back to station and getting 2 bullets to replace the 2 I fired. It was like, see you tonight. And that was kind of how it went. And the common answer to the question of how you doing was, I'm good. We just never wanted to say anything but that. And the truth be told, a lot of times we're not.
Yeah, I agree. I noticed me and Jeff talked about being on the firefighter. We try to, one call comes in and then you kind of do that. Then you shut down for the next call. Then you shut down for the next call. Then 20 to 30 years later, that's when that stuff started coming back for me, where I had to get some therapy and get some help and go through, all kinds of different things. But for you, do you see a difference from when you came on till now when it comes to peer support and officers and first responders getting help?
Absolutely, I do. I've talked to some friends of mine, a good friend of mine who was a SEAL commander, and we talked quite a bit. And that's one of the things we talked about was when we were first getting into it, it was shut up and row. We just did what we were told to do. We never asked why. We never complained about nothing. We just did it. When I was growing up, that's how it was for me. I never questioned my dad. I just did what he said. I went to the Marine Corps. I never questioned them. I did what they said. I got on the police department. I never questioned. I just did what I said, and we just kept things inside. And now we're starting to ask why. And it's a huge question that we've got to answer. And I'll have to admit, as a 27-year veteran here and an instructor for a while, some of these newer officers that we hired, they ask why, and I had to get over being offended by that. Because when I was a kid, it was, you didn't ask why because I said so. Now we realize that that's probably the worst answer that you can give to that question. And so it took me some time to adjust to that and to understand why and to explain to them why. And I think because we're doing that and because they're asking those questions, we're able to get a lot more help and have those hard conversations about how you're doing and how things are impacting you, and debriefing, critical incidents, and giving guys time off, and not even asking them, but kind of telling them that, hey, you're going to take a couple of days off here. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And what stigma was probably attached to it, I believe is long gone. And I think it's a great thing. At least I hope it is. And we've got to continue to fight to make sure that it doesn't ever come back. We've got to be okay.
Absolutely. I know, for us, about 2015 on the fire department, that's where we started making a change and looking into that, and had our own peer support team. And even with some APD people, we went through CISM training together, and we continue to do that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think the departments around the United States and in England, fire, police, military, work together. We thought at first, we're going to go to CISM, we're going to police our own guys and be there for our own guys. It's good to a point. And then you got personalities you got to watch. So we cooperate with people on the outside of the county that we'll go to them and they'll come to us. It kind of works. It works pretty good that way too. Do you guys do something similar to that, or is it something different?
We do. We have guys here. I've been in several of the critical incidents that I've been involved in. We've kind of learned how to handle that with those CHISM teams, and how we do that peer support. The very first one was a Pendleton shooting incident. I think it was in 2012. And, we didn't have really anything in place at the time internally. So they brought some outside people in, and we were really reluctant to talk to them. We didn't know them. We didn't know anything about them. We didn't know if they'd ever even experienced some of the things that we were experienced. And I think it really left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. So what we did was we developed our own team of our own guys, and people became more familiar with what it was. And then now we're more open to having other people come in. I think it's all about the approach. And again, we're all type A personalities. We don't want to we don't ever want to show a weakness. We don't ever want to show a fault. And it was really tough initially to do it to people that were strangers to us. So I think now that we've developed it here, and it's become more the norm, that guys understand that, and that's how it is, and that we debrief on a call-to-call level. We debrief on a SWAT level. We debrief on things, not just the safety aspects, but maybe how you're feeling about it, how that impact you. And I think it's become more readily acceptable now. And now we're willing to take in and bring in other people to help us, because sometimes there are internal personality conflicts that we need some other people to come in and kind of be a mediator, if you will, and maybe have an impartial opinion about it. So I think we're all becoming a lot more willing to do that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So my question to you, John, is the new recruit, the new trainee that comes on board, it's been out on the street for less than a year. How do you transmit to them that this is what you need to talk to us about, and this is what it's going to feel like when it happens? How do you get into their mind and let them know that you're there for them?
That's a great question. One of the things that we've been doing here is we have a really good chaplaincy program here. And what we do is, before they even hit the street, the first time we introduce them to the chaplains, they give about a 45-minute to an hour class about what they do. And I think that sets the stage, number one, to let them know that, hey, it's important enough that we talk about it at the beginning. And then we debrief everybody. We do ICAT training, which is a training that talks about dealing with people that are having mental episodes and drugs. And I think that helps too, because we're talking about de-escalation. That's another thing that's really important. So we emphasize that quite a bit with our new officers, to where it becomes the norm. And our supervisors are being a lot better at, after an incident that could be deemed critical. And again, the hard part about that to me is that's an individual based thing. What I may feel is critical may not be to someone else. So we're trying to train our supervisors to be a lot more open-minded and just bring them in afterwards and talk. We do a 15-week FTO program where they're field training officer, where they're with someone. We grade them every day. So we try to have a lot of contact with them and asking them how they're doing, and let them know it's okay to not be okay at times. I think the biggest thing the change that we've made that I think is probably made the most impact is that, it's now okay to not be okay. It's not weakness. In fact, it shows more strength to admit that you need some time, or you need to talk to somebody. And I think that's amazing. One of the things that I had a hard time with on this in our profession was that type A personality, and we didn't require people to come off because everyone's going to say they're okay. That's just the way we are. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Your arm could be hanging off, but no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
That's exactly
So
what I'm
we're
talking
trying to
about.
make
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly where I'm at. You got the gung-ho attitude, I am this, I am that, I am fine. And they get home and they realize I'm in deep, deep kimchi. I really am. And that's the thing.
Well, and here's another thing too that I think, we want to we kind of hide it from our family too, because we don't want our significant others and our loved ones to fear, because if they hear everything that we're going through, they hear man, this is what I went to last night. This person, this car, the person's head was almost cut off or whatever. They don't want to hear that, or, hey, someone was shooting at us, and so we try to keep that to ourselves. And then we can't be vulnerable to them sometimes. And then when we're with our coworkers, we're not going to be vulnerable to them. We're going to talk about how cool it was, but we're not going to talk about how we truly felt about it. So we just push those things down, and then eventually it erupts. And one of the things that we're doing here is we have a counselor that comes in, and we've been doing some sessions about shift work and sleep and eating properly, and trying to get guys in a good position. And then she always ends it with, hey, if you need to talk, you can talk to me. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, I'll find somebody that we can find, that you could be comfortable with. And it's just become such a more regular thing now. And I'm glad because of it.
That's great.
Really
we're fortunate here in our county. We got the Anderson Center, Marion Teixeira, where she'll counsel police, fire, sheriff department for free, and it's amazing. The other counselor you got coming in, you want to give them a shout out? Is that okay?
Yeah. Dr. Heidi Monroe is someone that the chief is got to know and contracted her to come in and do some of the counseling with the department. And it's been amazing. I think she's already one of us. Guys have accepted her, and now they're seeing, I was a 17-year third shifter. There were days that I wouldn't sleep hardly at all, or, a couple of hours because of family life and everything else. And we just didn't really understand what that was doing to us. And so her coming in and teaching us helped. And, it's a total package. Everything is involved in this. Not that we have to eat properly, we have to sleep properly. We need to be able to vent what's going on in our heads and cry if that's what it takes, and laugh. And we're good about laughing and the dark humor, that gallows humor that we all have, that we turn everything into something funny. And, that only works for so long. I could tell you, 27 years now, when I think about certain incidents, I don't laugh, and
I noticed you said you think about them. That's just telling me you don't talk about them then.
Well, and I've become more and more where I do talk about them. I always felt like I was kind of blessed to be the guy that could shove everything down and nothing really ever impacted me. But I was foolish to think that, and I, like I alluded to earlier, I've made some poor decisions. And I think a lot of those decisions were just response to trauma and stress and not dealing with it. And the biggest thing that I would advise everybody else, the new or younger officers, or anyone for that matter, in public safety, is don't push it down. Don't hold on to it, and get it out. Talk to it. You're not alone, man. A lot of us feel the same way, and it's now becoming a little bit more acceptable to talk about it, and it's okay. These debriefs that we've had have been amazing. There's been anger, there's been tears, there's been laughter, but I think, as a whole, everybody walks out of it feeling a little bit better.
I know a guy who went through exactly what you talk about, suppressed everything and took care of everybody else's issues. And that same guy looks exactly like me. It all came to a head about 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago to the day. It'll be the 9th, as a matter of fact. So I know exactly what you're talking about there. And hold those in and think you're doing the right way, but holding it is absolutely the worst. That is the absolute wrong.
Yeah, it is the worst. We think it is. We think we're sparing everybody else around us, and we give ourselves way too much credit that we can handle it.
Yeah.
We do. It's a shame.
I've only had 2 heart attacks from holding stuff in.
I was going to say, it comes out one way or another. It just does.
It will. That's when I found out the basement, the dark place, the basement actually has a lower level than that too.
Yeah,
It's horrible. There's two of us right here, three, just in this little area out of three, that have experienced this. So there's something to be said there.
Yes. And I think, the more that we share our experiences with people, the more that it becomes acceptable and they want to share theirs, and, whether it be a marital issue, whether it be a infidelity issue, a drinking issue, whatever it would be, we're all human.
My God, he just said everything about us, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll just do a checklist here. It's another one.
I'm sorry, John.
It's funny, though. We try to think like we're not human sometimes, and unfortunately, sometimes the community, especially the media, expects us not to be human. We're supposed to be perfect all the time, and we're not. We can't be. No one is. There's one perfect, and it's not us. And we have to be able to talk about these things so they don't fester inside us, because then they come out as heart attacks or in numerous different ways.
I tell you, I've been sober for 23 years now, but still, he's talking about infidelity. And I brought this up on the show. Me and my wife, I had a dark, found out something about my life, and I started cheating on my wife. And instead of drinking and drugging, I ran back to cheating. And then after I knew that was wrong. And then I thought about killing myself. I had it planned out. I was going to kill myself. Then a couple James Harless with the fire department, our peer support, and some other guys noticed the change in me. That's when they packed up and sent me to Maryland. And I got to share all those things I didn't talk about through the years or I forgot. I had other firefighters sharing about losing a child, doing CPR on a kid, or, I lost my granddaughter. Yeah, she died. And I remember doing CPR on this kid one time, this little baby in the ER, and that was right where my granddaughter, same room where my granddaughter, when I held her dead in my arms. So you're right, though, to talk about out loud about it and let those tears flow if they come. That's what I'm learning. 57 years old. I try not to hold back. I let that vulnerability is very uncomfortable, but I try to let that go, because what that does, it speaks to that person that's standing beside me or who I'm talking to in the crowd, that it's okay to let your guard down. It's okay to admit you're hurting. Just like you were alluding to, about letting our guard down and not, I used to joke around. I said, I tried to be Superman, but I had to lay and take my cape off because I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's exhausting, and it's an impossible task. So why do we try? We have to be human and be human. And if we have emotions and, we're by nature, we're fixers, and we want to fix every problem that we can. And, I do. I mean, I have therapy and counseling sessions now, and that comes up a lot. Is hey, don't fix the problem. Listen to the problem, or quit trying to fix your own problem. Just talk about it. We get ahead of ourselves because we want to solve it, and sometimes there is no solution. Sometimes the solution is just getting it out and not holding it anymore.
When I had my downfall, reality check, whatever you want to call it, I didn't know what was wrong. I knew something was seriously wrong with me, but I really wasn't able to identify what it was. And that scared the hell out of me, because here I am, I'm that guy, like you just said, I'm the fixer, and I could fix everything, but I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I couldn't convey that to my spouse or anybody else because I didn't know. And that was probably the scariest part there, is not knowing how to say what was wrong with you and what you really can identify it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we push everything down, and then things start to happen to us, and we want to deny that they're happening to us, so we ignore them, and then sometimes we won't even know what's wrong. Something's wrong, but we don't even know. My wife is asking me what's wrong, and I'll say nothing, and she'll say something, and I've learned now that it just at least say I don't know something, but I don't know, and we'll talk about some things, and eventually we will hit it on the head and be like, I didn't realize that was bothering me. Like, for example, December has always been a pretty rough month for me. My father died in December about 12 years ago. My grandmother died in December several years ago. I was in boot camp during December. My parents were divorced when I was little, so Christmas was always kind of screwy. And, I always thought that was seasonal depression or whatever. And I've come to realize, after some counseling and some therapy and listen to some good podcasts, that, I do have some issues that I need to address, and I need to at least speak about out loud. And it's okay. I'm not the only one in the world that has that. And I think that's what we think. And it's like, and then we're like, I can't be, I'm a lieutenant, I'm a SWAT commander, I'm this, I'm that. I can't be those things. I can't have a problem. I got to be perfect. I got to be on all the time. And, my wife said to me just the other day, you're changing in a good way now. You're starting to be able to be relaxed and be normal. And I kind of laugh, but I see it. I see it. Before, being on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with on the SWAT team, I even when I was on vacation, I wasn't on vacation. I still had my ear to the ground. And, we go camping a lot and we do a lot of things. And I'm sure it wasn't fun for her because of the way I was. And I didn't realize it at the time. And I didn't ever understand why that bothered her. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. You knew that. You knew that's what I do. Well, that's part of my language, but that's horseshit. You know what I mean? We can't act that way. That isn't what they want. That's not what they signed up for. And I'm sorry that it took me 53 years of age and 27 years on the SWAT team to finally learn these things. So if I can do anything is try to get that message to people at a lot earlier, younger age, so they don't have to go through all the things that we have went through, repeat some of the same mistakes.
How do you, as a CO commanding officer, are you lieutenant, you're in charge of this, so on and so forth, and you have others that are parallel to you as well, how do you guys deal with the stuff that you've retained, that you're taking in from the guys and gals that you work with, the stuff you've heard, the trauma from their viewpoint? How do you guys deal with that?
I try to have guys come in and talk it out. I've had a couple of officers come in that were having some issues, and I felt very thankful that they felt comfortable enough to come to me and talk to me about it. But we'll shut the door and we'll shed a tear. I've got a box of Kleenex on my desk that I've used as much as anybody else, and we just try to get it all out there. And I always try to tell them, I can't give you all the answers. I don't know all the answers, but we can try to find them. And sometimes the answer is just talking about it. And realizing that you're not on an island. I think that's the biggest thing. We all want to think that nothing happens or nothing goes wrong with any of us, and we're all perfect at all the time, and nothing ever bothers. No matter what you see, he seems so calm on the radio. You see that? Yeah, we are then. But when the uniform comes off and we're laying in bed and we can't sleep, I think every police officer has had that dream where you pull the trigger and you can't pull it because it's so tight, or the bullet melts out of the end of the barrel. And, it's funny because I just had one of those just the other night. I couldn't pull the trigger. It was like it was locked. And I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's been a few years since I've had one of those. But letting everybody know, talking to each other about it and letting them know it's okay. And I think we're our own worst enemies a lot of times. We like to poke fun at each other, but I think we're becoming a lot more aware of how we feel, and it's okay to share your feelings. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. I think I did. I tried.
Yeah, you nailed it. You did fine. Yes. Go ahead, Skip.
There's somebody out there right now. They might be in their squad car. It might be 2:00 in the morning. They just got off a call, or might be a military guy over there listening to this podcast, or a firefighter that's had one of those calls. They're struggling, they're lost, they might have an addiction problem, or they just might think, man, I'm tired of being here in this world. You got 30 seconds or a minute. What are you going to say to them?
The biggest thing I can say is it's okay to feel that way. You're not alone. Find somebody to talk to. I remember a call specifically right after my middle daughter was born. She was a few days old. And there was a SIDS death call come out, and it was a little girl about the same age. And I remember calling my lieutenant and saying, I can't take that call. It hits too close to home. And he's like, okay, I get it. And it took a lot for me to call him, because I was like, I didn't want to be looked at as the guy that I used to see. You can't take. No, but I knew that. So recognize that about yourself and realize it's okay. Find somebody to talk to and realize it's okay. We don't judge. It's hard to be vulnerable. It is, but we have to be. There's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. You can't be on stage all the time.
That kind of bummed me out. I like being a center point all the time, so I'll take that for what it's worth.
Well, you can be center stage when you're on there, but you can't be on there all the time.
My soapbox is tall.
Well, John, is there some verse, some phrase, something that if you're struggling that kind of resonates in your mind to keep you going? Is there something that pops in your mind right now?
One thing that I always think about is everything happens for a reason. We don't know why, but he does. God knows why. And who are we to question? Have faith. And it's hard at times. It's hard at times. But if you have faith, you'll get through it. And I think that's the thing that I think about all the time. Sometimes we ask ourselves, why me? Why me? And I think I've tried to turn that around and be like, I'm glad it's me because I know I can handle this. I'm going to handle this. I'm going to get through this. If I can take the pressure off somebody else, I'm going to take it because I have a good relationship with God. I know I've made mistakes and I've admitted my mistakes and I've been forgiven, and he has the plan. And just because the door closes doesn't mean the window's not going to open. And be positive. And I think that's easy to say, but we really have to. We just got to be positive. I mean, we don't take on, we don't get more than we can handle, or that he's going to equip us to get through. And I believe that.
I've got that saying right above my kitchen sink.
That's great, man. Well, also, I want to let those people that heard John or listening right now, you can go on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Go to worldwidepeersupport.org. We have support meetings for first responders on there. That's worldwidepeersupport.org. That's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, you can go to burnoutpodcast.org. And if you want to contact John, get a hold of us, and we'll connect you to John or Jeff. If you need help or if you want to be a guest, you're welcome to come on here. Jeff, do you got any closing statements to John?
John, I want to thank you for taking your time. I know you're a busy man and really letting it out and sharing your stories with us, so on and so forth like that. I do appreciate that. And
thank you.
Be safe out there.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do.
John, thank you for coming on here. I'd like to thank all the listeners for listening to us. Just remember, you're not alone. Go home tonight, shut your radios off and your phones off, and get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Burnout. Burnout is brought to you by the Worldwide Peer Support. You can visit Burnout Podcast at burntoutpodcast.org or visit Worldwide Peer Support at worldwidepeersupport.org. Your hosts for the Burnt Out Podcast are Skip O and Jeff the Old Guy. Produced by Sean P. Neal. A MyPodcast.media production.